The Apache web server has got a great feature called Virtual Host that will allow us to serve up more than one website from the same server. In this video, we will configure our server to host more than one website. First thing we need to do is to modify our etc host file so that we can have our website domain names point to our local server. We are doing this for the purpose of this video. Follow the instructions on your exam for your particular setup. Now we will create our two directories that will house our two websites. Before we go further, take a look at the permissions on these two directories. We can see that only root has write access, and all others have read and execute permissions. This is important, as we wouldn't want anyone else to modify our web pages. That is partly how websites get hacked. Also, look at the security context. We have the httpd sys content t context set up, so SE Linux knows that the HTTP daemon is supposed to have access to these resources. If this security context is not set properly, your website will not work. Now, let's add our two new websites to our httpd.conf file. The first thing that we need to find is the directive for virtual host. Start with section 3 of this configuration file to find information on virtual host. Scroll down to find the directive that enables virtual host. Uncomment the line for virtual host. This will give us the ability to use the names of our websites so that when a request comes in for a particular website, Apache will know where to go on our server to find that website. Now let's enter in our first virtual host. Now scroll down a little further to find an example of a virtual host website. We will create our virtual host below this section. We start the virtual host container with the following. Next, we tell the virtual host container what site we are trying to access, along with the port number. Next, we will enter in our document root directive, which tells the server where the files for this website are located. If you notice that in the example above, they are using a different directory location for their document root location. However, not only does that directory not exist, but we would have to manually set a security context for that location as well in order for SE Linux to allow the HTTP daemon access to that directory. Since we are staying within the default web directory, we are ensuring that our permissions and security context are correct. Next, we need to include our server name. Now, we need to include our log locations. Make sure that you follow the syntax above for the logs to work properly. Finally, we close out our first virtual host container. Now let's go ahead and configure our second virtual host. Now we save and close our file. We can verify the syntax of our httpd.conf file by running the following command. Now let's reload our configuration for the HTTPD service. Next, we need to create the content for our two new websites. Now let's go to our web browser and see if we can view our new sites. And there we go. We have multiple sites from the same web server.